Hello, my name's Dan Street. I am Country Business Manager for Gireve, looking after UK and Irish markets. Today, I'm just going to take you through basically what is roaming, why it matters in EV charging deployment, peer-to-peer versus platform, and what the decision-making process looks like. And then we'll also touch on interoperability for future charging use cases such as plug and charge and smart charging. So first, a little bit about Gireve and what we do. So many of you may know that we are a roaming hub, but we also branch out into other areas as well, such as consulting. Our consultants are very knowledgeable and cover basically any aspects of the industry that you require, also including connections such as OCPI. Due to being a roaming hub, obviously we collect a lot of data, so we also compile and report that. We deal with very large companies as well as government bases. And most recently, we have developed plug and charge, which we are slowly deploying over multiple countries at the moment as well. So a little timeline on Gireve. The company was founded back in 2013 with 5 founding members, including Renault and EDF. And initially, the company was developed to collate as much information on charge points in France as possible. Fast forward 3 years, and then that's when we launched our roaming services across Europe. 2020, we ramped up the development of plug and charge and started to really scope out what that would look like, as well as clearing services, consulting, and data development. Fast forward to today, we have over 2 million drivers charging on over 556,000 charge points in 35 countries across Europe. And earlier this year, you can read up on this, we did another round of funding and raised 20 million euros. And we welcomed our most recent investor, who is a French investor called Partech. Just a quick slide on Gireve numbers. So we can see on the bottom left there at the graph, as previously mentioned, 556,000 fully public charge points connected to Gireve. Over the last 3 years, that's really on an upward curve and ramped up pretty much in line with when the market's had its push. And then the same with charging sessions growth on the platform as well. So we'll just cover a bit about what EV charging roaming is and interoperability. And for some of you, it might be quite basic, but we do get asked this a lot. And I think some people have a basic understanding, some people don't really know, and some people know it inside out. So if we just come out of the EV sector for the moment, the best examples I can give you are telecommunication and ATM. So an example of this, I'm on 3 in the UK over here. When I visit our offices in Paris, my phone will 9 times out of 10 connect to Orange. Orange doesn't exist in the UK anymore, and 3 doesn't exist in France. And that's because behind the scenes, there's a roaming agreement between the 2 parties that says, when my customers come to your country, they can use your network and vice versa. I don't have to do anything. As soon as I land, the phone connects automatically, and it's not something I need to worry about. And it's the same with ATM. So you're signed up to a high street bank, and most of the time you can use the debit card supplied by that bank on other high street banks, again, without having to worry about it or be concerned. And that's because, again, there's roaming agreements in place behind the scenes to say that that's okay. So coming back into the EV sector, so effectively roaming is the ability for an EV driver to charge on various charging stations using only one subscription provided by one service provider. And the illustration on the right just provides that perfectly. So we've got the EV driver, they'll sign up to an EMSP, and that EMSP has multiple agreements in place with various CPOs, which allows that driver then to charge on those chargers without having to go through multiple registration processes. So currently there is 3 ways to charge. So we've got direct payment, which is really quick and easy. Tap your card, you're good to go. However, there is limited scope of services, which I'll cover in the next slide. Subscription to the CPO network. So this is the dreaded multi-app situation. A driver pulls up to a network, they register with them. They're now a registered driver of that CPO network. However, only that network. So that driver needs to charge again, and they pull it to another charger. It's owned by a different CPO. They then have to go through another registration process, which then means they've got multiple apps, which is not ideal. And then lastly, we've got roaming through an EMSP. So that will allow the driver to pretty much charge anywhere with one subscription, and they can access that through a single app, RFID card, and soon to be plug and charge. So subscription based versus direct payment, so EMSP versus direct payment. So if a customer signs up to an EMSP, as I've said previously, it's just one unique subscription. It normally covers you across EU, so plenty of coverage, tailored services and prices, and ready for future use cases. And it is really, really secure. Because of direct payments anonymous, there's no remote services during charging, limited scope of services, and not adapted for future use cases. So limited scope of service, what do I mean by that? So effectively, if a driver is signed up via an EMSP, that EMSP might offer them incentives. Could look like points, loyalty plan, or an incentive for charging on a certain network at a certain time. They're not going to get that through direct payment because it's anonymous. So it just gives the driver a bit more of an incentive to use an EMSP. So how does it all work? So we've got the charging point itself, which is the physical kit and the owner. You then got the CPO. A lot of times they are the same, but not always the case. The CPO will have a back office provider, which is connected to the charge point, and it also forms a technical connection with Gireve. Once they've formed a technical connection with Gireve, it allows the CPO then to go onto our marketplace and publish an offer, almost effectively like a profile page, which tells the EMSPs where their charges are, how many they operate, their mix of charges, and then they can publish their offer, which is basically how much it is to use their charge points. The EMSP then has a similar setup, so the EMSP has got access to the driver. They also form a technical connection with Gireve. They can go on the marketplace, see the offer that the CPO has put up, and they can sign an agreement which gives almost instant access to the driver to be able to charge on that network. So peer-to-peer versus platform, what that looks like. So we acknowledge peer-to-peer, and in some use cases it's better for that customer, in others not always the case. So on the left, we can see here, this is an example of customers who have chosen to go peer-to-peer. As you can see, there's each CPO and each EMSP just has that one line, that one connection. It does take up a lot of resource, and it can take a lot of time to build up a sizable network. And then the one on the right is all managed in a single platform. So once the technical connection's formed, they can just then sign multiple agreements. They'll get notifications when new EMSPs or new CPOs have joined the platform, and they can go on and sign those agreements. So it's effectively weighing up the cost of internal management versus the cost of external management, and also resource as well. So we see a real mix on Gireve. So we've got some will prefer just the simplicity of a roaming hub and will religiously stick to the roaming hub and have all their connections managed through there. We have some that will prefer a mix, so partially buy versus partially make. So an EMSP might come on and say, okay, in certain countries, I just want to go through a roaming hub. In other countries, I want to go peer-to-peer. Or with certain networks, I want to go peer-to-peer. And with certain networks, I'm happy going through the platform. And we see that a lot. And then you've got some, very few, and it is quite rare, but some that will completely make the solution by themselves. And as I said previously, it does take up a lot of resource and can take up a lot of time in terms of building that sizable network. And if we just touch on future use cases, so plug and charge, I've mentioned that we have recently developed that, and we're currently deploying it across multiple countries. So basically what is plug and charge? So any driver must be able to charge on any EV, no matter the OEM, or any station, no matter the CPO or charger maker, using any service provider. So because those connections will already be formed with Gireve, Roman is already primed for that. And smart charging, so power modulation and bi-directional charging, new use cases to offer flexibility to grids, and wherever relevant, participate in energy wholesale markets via EV smart charging. The operators, providers, the energy suppliers will need to talk to each other in mass. So again, if they're all connected to Gireve, then the Roman is primed for that situation. So that's been the presentation today. Thanks for listening. And if you want to reach out to me, my contact details are there at the bottom. Thank you.